TCT presents Public Report, a look at the issues and events of importance to our viewing area. Now, here is your host.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Public Report. I am joined today by the Honorable Mayor William Healy. Welcome.
Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. Mayor of Canton, Ohio. When I think of Canton, Mayor, I think of one thing.
Me?
Ah, no, that's second. The Canton Hall of Fame.
Of
Now,
course, yes.
is that your experience? People recognize Canton as synonymous with the Hall of Fame?
Absolutely, and I've traveled all around the world and throughout the country and many other countries overseas. And when you tell them you're from Canton, Ohio, they think Canton, Ohio is like the second biggest city in the United States because they know New York and Canton. I know that, the Football Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. It is very well known because of the NFL and the Hall of Fame there. And that really allows us to have kind of an identity that people recognize wherever we go. Exactly,
kind of brand recognition.
Mm-hmm.
How did the Hall of Fame get to Canton? The story behind all of that?
Well, the story behind that is the professional football actually started in Canton, Ohio. There was a man there who owned a car dealership. It was called a Hupmobile. That was the brand of the car back in the early 1900s. And he actually owned one of the football teams that was out there, and the different people put together football teams, and they had leagues. But the problem so the guys would have to go to work or they would have lives, and so they wouldn't show up sometimes and others. So he called a meeting and brought in a bunch of owners for the different football teams, and they agreed to form a professional league where they would pay the players so that they would guarantee them to be there and also to create more competition. That all happened in the city of Canton, Ohio in 1920. So in a few years, we're going to be celebrating the 100th anniversary of professional football. And so when they decided to build the Football Hall of Fame to recognize the great players of the game, the folks in Canton gathered up and said, it should be here for this reason. And so they bid on it and was able to bring the Hall of Fame there. One of the very first teams to play in the original league was the Canton Bulldogs. And one of the first, probably the world's greatest athlete at the time was named Jim Thorpe. He was an Olympic gold medalist in the Olympics at that time. He played for the Canton Bulldogs, and they won the championship the first year they played. So that kind of anchored us in as like the birthplace of professional football. And so today, that's why Canton is synonymous with football and professional football.
Absolutely is, because I hear of McKinley Bulldogs.
Mm-hmm.
And you graduated?
I graduated from Canton McKinley, yep, absolutely. I'm a Bulldog, yep.
You're a Bulldog?
Absolutely.
They say tried and true, huh?
It was the greatest high school to ever go to.
Oh, is that right? Okay, I think you're a little biased, but okay.
No, it's true.
Really? Okay. So, Mayor, talk to me about what I read this morning about a Canton Hall of Fame village.
Yes, the Football Hall of Fame is a museum, and we've had a number of expansions that have made it a really fantastic visit. If you have an opportunity to go to the Hall of Fame, if you like football, and everything you ever want to know about football today and in the past, you'll see the greatest players. And we celebrate every year great players coming into the league. As a matter of fact, to get into the Football Hall of Fame, you've got to get like 80% of the votes of the people that are on the panel. And there's millions of players, of kids that played football. And there's probably tens of millions. There's millions that have played, high school football throughout our country. There's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands that have played college football. But there's only 27,000 people that has ever been paid to play football in the history of the 100 years. 27,000 have ever been paid. And of those 27,000, there's only about 280 that have been recognized as the greatest of the greats that are in the Hall of Fame. So you're talking about really excellence and perfection and the best of the best. So they are in this Hall of Fame, in this museum. But we're now talking about creating the Hall of Fame Village project, which is taking that museum and turning it into an experience. And the stadium that's next door is the McKinley High School Stadium. Mm-hmm. They use that for the Hall of Fame games. It's been there for over 70 years. We're going to be tearing that down and building a brand new stadium. It's going to be Tom Benson Stadium. The owner of the New Orleans Saints donated $10 million for that project. So Tom Benson Stadium will be built over the next 2 years. You'll see that completion. We're going to build a brand new top-notch hotel. It's going to be between a 4- and a 5-star hotel, 33 suites, one for each NFL team owner, and one for the commissioner, plus obviously for anybody else throughout the year. But they're building a convention center. There's going to be hotels and restaurants. There's going to be a medical facility for state-of-the-art R&D on sports-related injury and recovery. So you'll see concussion research, and you might see some of the world's greatest athletes actually come to Canton for their rehab. We're going to have an indoor training facility. We're going to have, there's a housing complex for retired NFL players, so they can actually live there on the campus, so that when you're there, you'll see retired players and NFL stars. So it's really, the concept is pretty grand. But as it stands right now, it's about a $500 million development, $500 million development. There's several phases that have already been approved and are signing off on, and we're looking to break ground this year on the first part of it, which is starting on the stadium. So it's pretty spectacular. I'll share with you that right now, the Hall of Fame brings in about, well, not quite 300,000 visitors a year, which is a nice attraction. With this new concept, they're talking about bringing in over 3 million, maybe as many as 5 million visitors a year. So that's a whole different world. And part of it is teaming up with a company called Thinkwell, which Thinkwell has a division called the Imagineers. Does that ring a bell? We all know that the Disney tie-in.
When I said Disney, I said, we're talking Disney here.
They actually just got done building the Harry Potter attraction at Universal Studios. Thinkwell's also the company that built Ski Dubai, the ski resort in the desert in the Middle East. This is they're really grand thinkers in reference to create an experience. So they're partnering with this, and you got the NFL involved, and you've got private investors. And what's happening is they're now going to take what would be buildings like a hotel and a football stadium, you know, and a museum, and turn it into an experience that you would get if you went to a Universal Studios or a Disney. So that when you go there, you're going to live, feel, eat, breathe football, and you're going to have those type of attractions, those animations and stuff. That's going to be part of it. So that's where they're going to go from 300,000 to 3 million plus. It is probably one of the most spectacular things to ever come through Northeast Ohio, and certainly for the city of Canton. And we're on the very beginning of it. It's exciting.
It has to be thrilling. I mean, just the concept alone, I'm like, I see it in my mind.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And we've seen some of the concepts for the attractions, and it's like everybody that sees it wants, I'm going to do that. I want to do that.
Great. And so are Canton residents embracing this?
Well, we are, and it's funny because, you know, we've been in the works for about a year and a half. The city put up the first $5 million seed money. The state then put up $10 million from capital budget, and then we're starting to see more and more monies come to the table. And like I said, Tom Vincent donated $10 million, and we're starting to see other investors make commitments to the project. So it's growing, and it's becoming more real and more extravagant in the process. But as the designs and the ideas keep coming together, the project is just really turning into something special.
Oh, it has to be. And this is your 8th year as mayor?
Yes.
Of Canton?
Yes.
And for you to be mayor and to be a part of that?
Yeah, and it's really exciting to me because, you know, I wanted to change the world. That's why I ran for office. And obviously, you know, changing the world is very challenging, but changing at least a small part of it in Canton, Ohio. I mean, that's why I joke about it. I'm going to change the world, or at least a small part of it in Canton, Ohio. And I really feel like we have the opportunity. We've made huge progress in so many areas by making Canton safer, by tearing down huge amounts of blight. 1,400 homes we've torn down since I've been mayor. We've been able to attract many companies to our city, really turn around the downtown and make things more exciting and fun. But this is going to take us leaps and bounds into the future. So to be a part of that, it's very rewarding knowing that you know, your efforts are going to net results that are measurable and you know, change people's lives.
Did you always aspire to public office?
No, in fact, I chose not to go into public office. My father was in public office my whole life, and I kind of went the opposite path. I left town, I went into the private sector, and so that was my dad's gig. You know, I'm not going to do that. And so I was on the East Coast, in New York area, New Jersey, and my father became ill, and I came back and he passed away. And I don't know what happened, except the only thing I can think is that my father's spirit somehow leaped into my body. And literally, I went back home to New Jersey, and I told my wife, I said, you know what, I know what I want to do. And she said, what? And I said, I want to run back home, move back home and run for office. I was so frustrated in reference to the state of our city. Because as you said, I've been outside of the city for about 15 years. Everywhere I went, I told everybody how great Canton was, how wonderful my city was, Canton McKinley Bulldog, you know, home of the Football Hall of Fame. You know, people could watch the Hall of Fame game on television. I'm like, hey, that's my city, that's my stadium. And when I moved back, or when I came back to take care of my father, you know, it was a mess. The downtown was barren. Houses were boarded up all over the place. Crime was out of control. Companies had left town. I mean, the whole city really had taken such a horrible downward turn. And the first thing I thought of was somebody needs to do something. And then I started feeling guilty because I was waiting for somebody else to step up. And then I was looking at the people who were looking to run for office at that time, and they were the same people who were there when I left town 15 years ago. And I'm thinking, well, these are the people who were there when it fell apart.
Right.
They're not the answers. They're part of the problem.
Right.
And that's when I told my wife, I want to go home. And we moved back home. I ran for office, and I became state legislator. And I won 2 terms, and then I ran for mayor and became mayor. And so I've been doing that for 8 years. And this year I get to do it one more time. We have an election in November, and if the public is willing to support me, I'm willing to put in another 4 years to try to keep us moving in the right direction.
So you are, as Gandhi said, be the change you want to see.
Well, yeah, and it's not easy, but I really feel like we have made change. I know that the city in so many ways is better today than it was when I got here.
Okay.
And that's really why I'm here, is to try to make improvements. And, you know, we can't make all the change we want, and we can't do all the things we want as fast as we want, particularly because we had to manage the city through the recession, which was very difficult because the bottom fell out.
Yes.
And we were not only able to help the city survive the recession, but we were still moving forward and growing during that time. And so I'm really proud of that too, because a lot of cities didn't fare so well during the recession period.
Not at all. When you talk about keeping jobs and attracting them at the same time, that balance.
Yeah, and that's a never-ending battle. There's, you know, every business that's here today eventually will not be here someday in the future. They're going to retire, they're going to close down, they're going to get bought out, they're going to relocate, they're going to consolidate or merge with somebody else. So businesses change. And if we sit back and assume that the companies that are here today are going to protect us and provide for us for the next 20 or 30 years, we got a problem, because you're going to lose businesses over time. Industries change. You know, the company that was making fax machines isn't in business anymore. You know, that's guys that made 8-track players. They're not there.
Right.
You know, so as technologies change and industry change, companies change. And in order for us to survive our future, we have to continually bring in new businesses, do everything we can to help the companies that are here and help them grow and get through difficult times. But we have to constantly bring in new business and new opportunities, some startups, some existing companies. And as we do that, we're constantly bringing new jobs into the pipeline. And while you're constantly losing some, the goal is to bring in more than you lose so that you're growing. And this past year, we've had the lowest unemployment numbers that we've had in over 30 years in Canton. And we've set records for 2 years in a row in reference to income tax collected, and we haven't raised the income tax in the process. So we've been able to have more people working and paying taxes in the last 2 years than ever. So we know that we're bringing in more than we're losing, and it's moving in the right direction.
So is Canton more of a service town in terms of employees?
Canton, first and foremost, we're a manufacturing town.
Okay, Timken?
Timken is a main staple there and a big employer, but we have hundreds and hundreds of companies that manufacture things. And one of the things that I do as part of my job is I actually will go out and meet with businesses on a regular basis. And since I've been mayor, me and my development team, we've introduced ourselves and met with over 500 different businesses in our city. And more than half of them are manufacturing something. It's amazing what we've learned that's being manufactured. Guardrails. That they make guardrails that go all over the country for the highways. They're made here in Canton. We have a company that makes light posts for decorative street lighting as well as highway lighting, and they're one of 2 companies that sell throughout the nation. We have, of course, we have steel companies and titanium companies and aluminum companies and fabricators, and we make parts and pieces for the auto industry. There's one company that makes the headrest bar for Honda motor.
Yes.
That's the only part they make, but it's a full-time gig for them to do nothing but make that one piece for the Honda factory. And the most fascinating thing to me was when we went into one company who actually was making hula hoops.
Really?
Yeah, in Canton. Yeah.
In Canton.
Yeah. So I mean, you just don't know until you get out there and see. But there's a lot of manufacturing. We're growing in the oil and gas industry, obviously with the Utica shale in the region, and we're seeing a lot of activity from that. A lot of engineering companies and a lot of different fields that are covered from that. Medical is huge in this region between Canton, Akron, and Cleveland.
Yes.
We've got 2 fabulous hospitals in our city that are 2 of the finest heart hospitals in the country. You have the Akron Children's Hospital.
Yes.
And they've got a couple of hospitals here that are big, and of course the Cleveland Clinic and University. This corridor is huge for medical, and so we all benefit from jobs and opportunity there. The food processing is another big industry. So we've got a lot of diversity in reference to what we do in our city. And of course, the service industry is big as well, but it allows us to have that diversity, which is what you want, because when one industry is struggling a little bit, maybe another one's doing well, and that creates balance. And it really reduces the opportunity for major drop-off across the board at one time.
I see.
Sorry.
No, that's a good thing. I appreciate your, you know what, I wonder sometimes what the job of a mayor entails.
Oh.
When I saw on Facebook the little girl who spent a day with you,
Yes.
a day with the mayor. What was that day? What was that day like? Can you explain?
Boy, you know, we do that a lot. We have an essay contest. I spend a lot of time with education and the kids. And this essay contest, I think it was fourth graders, and the winner gets to be mayor for a day. And so we try to pick a day where we can, get them around and get them involved in things that they can, keep up with. And it's always a fun time for me, but you can tell the kids are very excited about it. But, to give an example, Monday, my day starts usually around 8 o'clock in the morning. Typically have a number of meetings in the morning. We have a cabinet meeting where we review the council agenda for that night to go over all the things that are coming up so we can be prepared. I might have a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce or have a meeting with the local business or one of the schools. And then that goes through regular work time, which is going to be at 5:30. But then at 6 o'clock, we typically kind of get together and prepare for council. 6:30, we typically have committee meetings where all the issues that are in front of council will be discussed in detail. And then at 7:30, the actual council meeting starts. And that can go till sometimes 8:30, 9 o'clock, but sometimes it goes till 10 or 11 o'clock. So, that's a typical Monday for the mayor of Canton, where you start at 8 o'clock, you usually don't get home until 10 o'clock or later. And then many days throughout the week are very similar for one reason or another, because as mayor, they want you to be at a lot of different places and events.
Right.
And then on the weekends, you're constantly doing things. Of course, every holiday. If there's a parade, you've got to be in it. If there's an event, a veteran ceremony, you've got to be there to speak. So pretty much every holiday you're working as well. So it's a job that it's a lifetime commitment in reference to you're living this job day and night. You don't turn it off. You don't get to go home and not be the mayor for a minute. You're always the mayor. But like I said, it's incredibly rewarding. And one of the things we're working on right now is Canton is hosting the World Games of American football. And we have 7 countries that are here represented with American football teams. The Brazilian team, the Mexican team, the Australian team, South Korea, Japan, France, and the United States are all here playing in a tournament to see who wins the gold, silver, and bronze for the American football.
Now?
Right now. Yeah,
right now.
Right now. The games, there's games tomorrow. Today's Tuesday.
Right.
Tomorrow's Wednesday. We have 3 games being played tomorrow, and then this coming Saturday, there's going to be 3 more games. That's a championship round, and we had 6 games that have already been played in the tournament. So to be able to watch, Japan line up against U.S. like they did on Sunday, and have playing American football with Team USA there in Canton, Tom Benson Stadium. That's a pretty cool thing. So as the mayor, I'm there, I'm welcoming the teams. Of course, I'm involved, I'm down on the field watching, and it's just exciting stuff, but it's one of those things that really makes you proud to represent your city.
You have to be proud, and I can tell you love it. With all the scheduling and things that you have to be on all the time, I can feel that you love doing what you do.
Most of it.
Okay, that's
Most
real.
of it, yeah. The job itself is incredibly rewarding. It's very challenging. I have 32 departments. I have 1,000 employees. We have the responsibility of 75,000 people that we're responsible for the health and welfare of. And we have a $250 million annual budget that we have to manage. And so it's a big responsibility. So it's like a CEO of a $250 million corporation with 1,000 employees. The difference is we live in a fishbowl, and everything is public record, everything is watched, every decision is scrutinized by the media, everything you do is being evaluated by 70,000 armchair quarterbacks. So, and you're never going to have a decision that makes everybody happy. So you always have the politics of you should have went left when you went right, or why did you do this, or why didn't you do that? And so that's the interesting part about the job. But making those decisions, you're typically making them based off of information that, you make the best decision off the information you have. That's the best part of the job. The politics goes with it, though, is when you've got the political, the opposite party, or even from the same party, political opponents that want your job. And so they're going to constantly go out there and tell you how awful you are. So you'll have 32 departments, 30 of them running exceptionally. You have 2 departments that are struggling, and of course, all they want to talk about is those 2 items. Right. This entire campaign in the primary this year was all about potholes. Now, you know as well as I do, Northeast Ohio had one of the worst winters ever, and every community had potholes everywhere.
Yes.
What town you live in?
In Akron, awful.
Okay. How were the roads?
Awful.
Right. I have been here for 8 years, and my entire campaign came down to how many potholes were out there.
Are you
and
serious?
You lose on pothole issues because and guess what? Next year there's going to be potholes, and 10 years from now there's going to be potholes. It
Absolutely.
is what it is. It's the area. But if you can get the arguments, the discussions, the debates around the issues that you're struggling with, and you're the opponent, you have a better chance of winning. And so opposition will want to talk all about potholes. When you're talking about the Hall of Fame Village projects and creating thousands of jobs, hundreds of millions of dollars of investment, that's not the conversation. It's about potholes. It's difficult to get reelected. But we were fortunate enough to get through the primary, and now we have a general election, and we've got to go do it all again.
Okay. So then how do you deal with that criticism?
Complain a lot.
Okay.
No, my wife hears me complaining. No, I mean, one thing that you do is you really just have to continue to take the high road. You have to constantly, keep your game face on, talk about the positives, make sure that you're sharing the good things. It's challenging because we know that, during the recession, people were struggling.
Yes.
A lot of people were out of work. People were, losing houses and figuring out how to keep their cars because they didn't have any money and cash flow. And you're trying to keep a positive image out there to say, hey, things are going to be better. Things are going to be good. Things are going well. This is challenging, but at least we've done this. And that doesn't mean a lot to that person who hasn't had a job in 6 months.
Right.
But that's the challenging part. But as more and more people are working, as the unemployment rate is dropping, as we're seeing the downtown become more vibrant and that more people moving in and businesses coming downtown, as we're seeing more education opportunities for our youth, those are the types of things that you can stand up and say, hey, look, we are doing better. And it's measurable, you can see it. And when that happens, then people start believing that, hey, you know what, we are on the right path. And that's the key, is really sharing and promoting all the great things that are happening, and there are many.
Well, it sounds like you had to navigate and take your city through transitions of grief and change. Like you said, it's going to constantly change, and that's difficult.
Yeah, we've went through, I think, the most challenging times of our city were probably in the last 5-6 years. I don't think the city has ever had the difficulties we had in reference to making it through from a financial standpoint, if the economics, the people in our city that were struggling. You probably have to go back to the Great Recession, and I have nothing that relates to that except for some stories we can read about. But in our lifetimes, there's never been a point in time that the city of Canton or any city had to deal with as the Great Recession. And we've been able to come out of that stronger than we were going in. And now we've got a lot of momentum, and there's a number of exciting things happening. So you really feel like there's just, I keep saying it, there's great things happening in Canton right now.
And with the Canton Village project,
yeah.
In terms of the jobs it can...
Well, they're projecting between 10 and 15,000 jobs being created out of that thing when it's from as it starts. We're talking about hundreds of millions, a couple of $1 billion worth of economic impact. It's a big deal. It's the biggest thing that's ever happened to our city, and if it's even a fraction of what they're describing, it will be the biggest thing that's ever happened to us. So that's exciting. But have you been to Gervasi?
I love it. Yes, it's beautiful.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Yes.
People go, every time people walk in there and say, this is Canton.
Right.
Yeah, and that was a field. And when we were there, we worked with the gentleman who bought the property. It was an old barn, and he wanted to convert it into the winery. And we had to bring water and sewer to him. We had to help with changing the zoning and code to make it for a liquor license. And of course, the neighbors didn't want a bar in their backyard because it's a neighborhood area. And so we went through all that with him. And then as he was able to get through those hurdles and start the process, people were starting to see it, that hey, it's going to be nice. We completely redid the road on 55th Street and drainage and all that. So you've got a beautiful entryway. And I think one of the most spectacular places to go in the country, not just in Canton or in Ohio. It is spectacular. And folks, if you've never been to Gervasi, you got to go down there. A restaurant, a winery, if you're looking to get married anytime soon, there's no better place in America to get married than that place. So it is so special, and it's been there about 4 or 5 years now. And there's villas you can actually stay overnight there. There's a lake with white swans that swim in the lake. It's the real deal. And that's all new since I've been mayor, and I'm very proud of that and excited about it. And like I said, if that's all we did in the last 8 years, it's certainly one of the most spectacular things the city's ever had.
It absolutely is.
And that's just the beginning compared to what we're doing with the Hall of Fame.
It absolutely is. In our remaining minutes,
yes,
Mayor, I want you to look in that camera and tell the viewing audience something about you that they don't know.
I think they know. Here's something. I was actually invited to perform live on BET.
Are you serious?
I am, yes.
Are you a singer or a musician?
Well, actually, no, not really. But I put together a program. A lot of places have karaoke. And I would go to these events, and there was always, whenever you go to see karaoke, there's always somebody there that's always outstanding compared to everybody else. And so every time I saw somebody that was really good locally, I'd ask for the name and number. And then I had a fundraiser, a Best of Karaoke, and I actually just invited these really top performers from around the community. And so it was really like a highlight reel of performances. And then we did that. We raised money to do a Halloween party for kids in the rough neighborhood. And actually, Jesse Jackson came to the event. So,
really?
But at the event, I actually performed a song, and there was the 2 producers from BET who happened to be in town because they were doing a show at the Palace Theater. And when they heard me, they came up and asked me to perform at the Palace Theater. And it was about a week before the election when it was supposed to go on, and so I had to turn them down because I was rapping. And it probably wasn't quite appropriate for the mayor to be rapping on television right before an election. So in any case, I'm a rapper.
Oh, you heard it live here on Public Report. The mayor is a rapper. Mayor, this has been amazing, spending this time with you.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
You know what? I hear your heart and your love for Canton and the people of Canton, the things that you're doing to bring commerce to the area, and I pray Godspeed for you.
Thank you so much.
I really mean it. I do thank you, Mayor William Healy, Mayor of Canton, Ohio. I'm going back to Gervais. I love it. It is. It's a moment. It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
There's a number of wonderful things in Canton right now, so enjoy.
I will enjoy it. Absolutely will. Yes, I will enjoy it. What song did you sing?
I cannot disclose that.
Okay.
This has been Public Report. Public Report discusses the issues of interest and importance to our viewing area. Please remember that the views expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily represent the views of TCT or the station.